everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Inner Peace Better Health. I'm your host Avik, and here on Inner Peace Better Health, we explore the strength it takes to heal and the softness it takes to stay. So today's guest is the fierce and phenomenal Margie Allman. So welcome to the show, Margie.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Lovely, lovely. So, Margie, before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Margie is the author of the upcoming book, The Sufferfest: How Sex, Drugs, and the Triathlon Saved Her Life. So, the name is Saved My Life. So, her journey reads like a storm and a comeback, like from surviving institutional child abuse, battling with the addiction, and facing profound loss, to becoming an Ironman contender, a Pilates instructor, and now at 60, a beacon of unapologetic self love and the resilience. Yes. So she's here to remind us no matter where you start or how many times you fall, you are never beyond the power to rise. So, dear listeners, I'll not take much of your time. We'll quickly jump in with one and only Margie Allman. So, welcome to the show again.
Thanks. It's exciting to talk about all this.
Yeah, exactly. So, Margie, your life has had so many chapters, like some unimaginable. So, what was the turning point where you choose to fight for yourself instead of giving it to the pain?
Well, there were different points of uh, refusing to give in to the pain. When I was, after I was at a place called Straight Incorporated, which was an abusive institution for kids that parents couldn't handle.
Hmm.
Um, my parents had bought into the Kool-Aid or drunk the Kool-Aid, so to speak, so much that they didn't want anything to do with me. So they dropped me off at the airport and they said, "See ya." And I was 18 and I had never been in the
Hmm.
world by myself. But all I knew really was to do the next step, which was, okay, I'll go to Atlanta and I'll find a place to stay. So I called my friends and I found a place to stay. And, um, I think that that was a big jumping off a building to see if your wings
Hmm.
work. They worked. But then throughout my life after that, I continually failed.
Hmm.
So it was constantly getting myself back up. It was,
Hmm.
two steps forward and five steps back. And
Yeah.
kind of, there was a time when I was so used to doing bad that I was just comfortable with it. Like, oh, well, I guess I screwed up again.
Hmm.
And, and then finally, when I was
Hmm.
at Ironman, I remember having a choice between failing and not doing my best and doing my best. And so you just keep
Okay.
going. Even if you're going the wrong direction, you just
Uh,
keep.
okay. Yeah, and I understand. Yeah, definitely. So, and if we talk about this, what to say, right? What got you through the days when even getting out of the bed felt like it's impossible?
What got me through the days,
Mhm.
I'm fortunate. I don't know if fortunate's the right word, but suicide was not an option for me. So
Mhm.
there was a time when I was so depressed that I couldn't leave the house. And so
Mhm.
but it wasn't that I wanted to die.
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer
Mhm.
kept, I just kind of went through it like day after day. And then one day I could leave the house again. It's, I didn't know, I knew some techniques for calming myself, prayer, meditation, but back then it didn't have a lasting effect. It was only in the moment. Like, okay, I'll say a serenity prayer. Poof,
Mhm.
it's here's the world, and I didn't know how to apply it. Today, I
Yeah.
know more about. how to calm myself down, because I still get the low self-worth sometimes, nagging thoughts about how
mm,
my life does my life have meaning, and I've learned that I have to those are the thoughts are like the dirt, or the junk food. You really have to just put them on the shelf and, like, mentally set them aside.
exactly.
Yeah.
True. I mean, I definitely agree on this that um, it's really a deep truth. Like sometimes healing starts with just one kind of stubborn breath. So um, yeah,
And I and exercise that's where exercise came in, and I realized exercise, it wasn't a drug for me. It was more like my safety rope. Like, as long as I kept moving, then I could survive. And then once I hit my 50s, my body started to break down, and I had to go inside, and, like, I didn't believe I could change my low self-worth. Like, in straight, they really tell you that you're a
mm,
piece of garbage, and unless you behave certain ways, and I had to do some deep diving to convince myself that I'm worthy as I am, even
exactly.
even if I can't run 10 miles anymore or do something that sounds great on the outside. I was kind of forced to
True.
make it sound great on the inside to me.
Mm, agree. Definitely agree. Definitely agree. Yeah. So you talk about letting go of shame for those who are carrying shame from the trauma, addiction, or loss. So what's the first crack in that heavy armor?
That's a good question because I carried that shame
Mm,
all the way through, like I said, into my 50s. And sometimes I wonder if I was born with shame, just thinking somehow I there was a message that did not fit in here, and that was something I was ashamed of. I was shy, and then it just was a downward spiral, like you said, to addiction and all these other behaviors. And um, once I realized, one time a friend said to me that it wasn't my fault. She said, "It's not your fault, Margie." And I didn't understand because I thought everything was my fault. And then once I found this work that helped me figure out how to reprogram these voices, I
mm,
it's not my fault that I was born with some
mm,
not knowing how to regulate my emotions. It's not my fault I was born with a genetic,
mm.
I have history of addiction, substance abuse, mental issues. None of
Yeah.
it's my fault, and it's not my fault that I didn't know how to deal with it. So
Mm,
once, there's I had to learn compassion for myself. Like, I would never be so hard on somebody else like I was on myself, and
mm,
once I could say it really isn't my fault that life has been so challenging for me,
mm.
then I had some I it's weird, it's hard to articulate the feeling in your inside where you go from self-loathing and how can, life is just uh easier if I'm invisible. Then
Yeah.
I had to realize that maybe all of this was for
Mm,
me to help other people, or maybe, I mean, there's a reason we're all here, and I had to learn to believe that there's a reason that I am on this planet. And I still don't believe that, but I refuse to let it control. I mean, I don't believe it all the time.
mm,
Sometimes I still question, was I just the bad kid? Was I just a burden? And everybody in my family learned from my
mm,
difficulties. I'm not saying it was all, we all came out on top. We still all have challenges, and our relationship had challenges because of the past. But if we're trying to break free of our own personal shame, um,
mm.
I do think physical movement helps because there's something that happens mentally when the body is working, and it can clear the mind. And once I clear that, it's like a dark cloak of
Mm,
I must be bad. And I have to clear that cloak and sometimes put that in my mental, put it on the shelf and go, no, I am a vessel of light. And I know that's corny, but if I
right.
convince it, keep moving and I keep being compassionate with myself, set
Yeah.
the yuck on a shelf in a closet in my mind,
Yeah.
and then I can see other things about myself.
Mm,
Um,
agree.
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, so I'm saying just, yeah, I totally agree.
You know, at the age of 60, I
Mm,
feel like it's easier to say this. When I was 40,
mm,
um, I was still I still didn't have a good sense of myself. I still didn't trust my own decisions. I still looked for somebody else to tell me what to do, even though I didn't want to do it. And I knew we go through life and we have these little positive things that go. So, like, I got my 2-year degree. Well, and then I had major setbacks, but I still knew I could achieve that little goal. So, and then in the book, I use exercise as the little goals because,
true.
um, kind of as a timeline. But there were other little achievements along the way. And then I'd blow everything up, but I
Mm.
always came back to no, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
And it helps that I had, even though my parents put me in straight,
Mm,
we did develop, they were always a big support for me. So
mm,
they weren't telling me I was garbage. They were telling me that they loved me.
mm,
And I'm lucky to have that I had that.
exactly. Lovely. And also, like, I mean, you lost your partner of 22 years just before turning 50. And um, like, how did grief reshape your identity and uh, your idea of the peace?
My idea of peace,
Yeah.
um, that that was tough because I felt like I had nothing. When he died, I really had nothing. And
Mm,
so I moved back to where my family was, which gave me a
mm,
sense of purpose because my parents were older and they needed their daughter
mm,
around. And that showed me what kind of person I am to be there for them because I really
yeah.
didn't want to be here. But I had, when you losing him taught me that the things I think are going to make me feel good and the things I think matter in life really don't matter if you don't have people that you love. Um,
Exactly.
People in relationships, and I say this as I still have PTSD and I have social anxiety, but people are really important to keep us going. And he was my anchor. And so I felt kind of like I was just whipping in the wind without him.
Mm,
But by finding another purpose, which was my parents, and then I taught myself a new how I am a different person. I wasn't just
mm,
our relationship wasn't perfect. I spent a lot of time training for triathlons, and so once he was taken away from me, again, I feel like maybe the universe was telling me it was time to deal with the inside, to go inside and figure out why I still felt
mm,
so unsettled. And my peace
yeah.
came from I had a lot of guilt over his death and
Mm,
almost remorse, and learning to forgive myself for that, to really believe it wasn't my fault
mm,
helped me. Again, I believe that being compassionate with ourselves is really important. We're not going to be perfect. And I look back and wish I hadn't left him when I did.
mm,
He wouldn't have died. Um, but there's nothing I can do,
Yeah.
and I'm not a bad person. I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to do at the time. And I learned that there are things in life that will never be okay, and somehow we have to stop beating ourselves up for them.
Mm, I agree on this. Yeah.
And a lot of that is self-compassion, setting the voices aside somewhere in my mind, just and knowing that there's value in moving forward.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
it
exactly.
it's easy to think that life is meaningless and that there's
Mm,
no purpose. But then I wouldn't have been put none of all of us are little miracles. You know, there's
yeah.
wouldn't have been created or put here if there
Mm,
wasn't some reason. And maybe I'm not supposed to know the reason, but I am supposed to be here. And so
yeah.
one time someone told me not to keep my light under a barrel. And ever since
Mm,
then I've been trying to figure out how to do that.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Maybe your light's supposed to shine for someone else.
Mm, totally agree. Yes. So, I mean, that actually hit home. I mean, uh, grief doesn't end, but neither does love. So they grow side by side, and it's a belief. Definitely, it
No,
still.
grief does not.
Mm,
And I think that grief almost needs to be treasure, honored, honor that sadness and that missing piece of
mm,
you. Um,
exactly.
something will grow, something else will grow, and where you had to let them go, it's nothing's going
Mm,
to fill that spot, but you might just grow.
exactly. Very true. Yeah. And okay, like also at 60, you say that you have finally found peace. So, what are the one or two tools that helped you build a life that is worth living and not just surviving?
What are the tools?
Hmm.
Is that what you
Yeah,
ask?
yeah.
Um, I do these. I found this program online. It's called To Be Magnetic, and
Eh,
and that's what has been my guidepost. I believe what that woman says,
hmm,
and I followed the steps, and a lot of it is these deep meditations of visualizing and reprogramming
hmm,
um my thoughts and
hmm,
mm, about myself, not just thoughts. I did a trauma
hmm,
therapy where I got in touch with parts of me that had been hiding and were exhausted.
hmm,
I think a lot of the inner peace what came with learning compassion for myself, which I couldn't have as long as I was hanging on to the guilt and the shame of
correct.
all my wrongdoings. And so this online workshop stuff that I found is what's helped
Hmm,
me. And a lot of it is to stop thinking so much, stop the
hmm,
stories that I tell myself and realize that those are just stories, they're words and some stuff you can't reprogram, but you have to let it
hmm,
go. And
exactly.
yeah. And so I'm not going to dwell on my wrongs. I still have moments where it catches me and I'll be thinking about something and I'm like, "God." And now it's more regret rather than
Hmm,
shame or guilt or suffering. And it's just regret that I hurt myself in that way. So I guess I'd say learning self
hmm,
compassion, but that can take a lot of work.
exactly. Exactly. Agree. That's everything. I mean, peace isn't the absence of struggle, it's the coming home to yourself anyway. So, that's very important. And yeah, Margie, I mean, it's a great way of reminding us that resilience isn't polished. It's very raw, real, and full of heart. So, from here, what advice would you like to give to the listeners?
Um, I do believe in a higher power,
Mm,
whatever you call it. I call it the universe, but it doesn't
yeah.
matter. My higher power has a sense of humor and is very compassionate. So for
Mm,
all its stumbles and falls, the universe helps lift me back up. And if I can stay connected, there's a part of my mind that I can connect to that,
mm,
and it's freeing, and it gives me permission. If all I can do today is go for a walk or a run, that's enough. And hold on to that, and good job. And the most important thing is that you go to bed and wake up the next day. Do not quit. We all deserve
mm,
to be here.
exactly. Lovely. So, for everyone who is listening, you don't have to be perfect uh, to be powerful. So, and you don't have to have it all together to begin. You just have to show up for yourself. So, with this hope, dear listeners, I believe you have learned a lot, and I'll also put all the links and everything into the show notes for if you want to reach out to Margie. So, Margie, how can listeners, if want to connect with you, how they can connect?
Um, my name on any social media, on Facebook, I'm Margie Allman. On Instagram, same thing. You can email me at margieallman@yahoo.com.
Okay.
And I'll say hi.
Perfect. Perfect. Lovely. Great. So, great. So, with this hope, until next time, stay tender, stay touch, stay tough, and stay true. So, thank you so much.